Welcome to the Explainer. Today, we are diving into a really big one, Spring Boot 4. We're going to break down the new features that are designed to solve some of those headaches we've all had for years. And of course, I'll walk you through what you really need to know to get your own projects migrated.
So let's just jump right in. Have you ever had to fight with messy, inconsistent API versioning? Or how about this one? Been totally blindsided by a null point exception at runtime? Let's be real, we've all been there. Well, you're going to want to pay close attention because Spring Boot 4 is tackling these exact problems head-on.
So here's our game plan. We're going to look at the super elegant new ways to handle API versioning and nulls. Then we'll get into the nitty-gritty of the migration process itself. And to wrap it all up, we'll talk about the new modular philosophy that's really going to shape how we build apps going forward. First up, let's talk about something I'm sure is familiar to basically everyone, API versioning. How do you let your API evolve over time without your code just becoming a tangled mess of V1, V2, and V3 all over the place?
Before Spring Boot 4, it was kind of the Wild West, right? Every team just had to invent their own solution. Maybe you used URL paths, maybe you used request headers, but there was no standard. And in a big organization, that inconsistency can turn into a massive headache.
And this is where you can really see the difference. On the left, that's the old way. A bit messy, with version numbers just crammed into your URLs and logic all over the place. But on the right, that's the new way. It's clean, it's declarative, and it's all managed in one spot with a simple annotation. It is so much better. And you know what? Getting this set up is surprisingly easy. You just pop open a configuration file, tell Spring which API versions you support, like, say, 1.0 and 2.0, and then you just pick your strategy. You want the version in the URL path or in a request header. It's all right here, totally configurable.
And here's what that looks like in the code. It's just so clean. Your @get mapping path stays simple, just /users. Then you add this @version annotation to tell it exactly which API version this particular method is for. It's incredibly easy to read, and it keeps the logic right where it belongs.
So the real takeaway is this. You just configure your versions once, and Spring does all the heavy lifting. No more hacking around with URLs. As you can see, when a request for version 2 comes in, the router sends it straight to the correct method. This is a total game changer for building APIs that are actually easy to maintain.
All right, let's move on. Our next big topic builds right on that idea of writing safer code. We're about to go after what is, without a doubt, the most infamous, most costly, and most frustrating error in the entire history of Java, the null pointer exception.
This quote from Tony Hoare, the guy who actually invented the null reference, just perfectly sets the stage for why this is such a big deal. For decades, we've all been fighting these runtime null pointer exceptions, and now Spring Boot 4 is finally giving us a powerful, modern way to stop them. The real problem has always been this thing called implicit nullness. You look at a method like this one, and you're just flying blind. You have no idea if it can return null. You have to guess, or hope the docs are up to date, or go digging through the source code. And we've all been burned when we guess wrong and our application blows up in production. So the solution is to make nullness explicit. And Spring Boot 4 does this by embracing the Jassify standard. Now, with one simple @nullable annotation, you're creating a clear contract. You are telling every other developer, and more importantly, all of your tools, that this method might return null. And this is where the magic really happens. The second you add that annotation, your IDE lights up. It can actually see the potential for a null value, and it will warn you right away if you try to use that object without checking if it's null first. You're catching the bug while you type, not getting a panicked phone call weeks later. But wait, it gets even better than that. You can plug a tool like Nullaway right into your build process. So now, if someone on your team tries to commit code that has an unsafe null access, the build just fails, period. Think about that for a second. An entire category of bugs just gone, wiped out before they ever even get close to production. That is huge. Okay, so these new features are obviously super powerful, but how do you actually start using them? Let's get practical and talk about migration and cover the key things you absolutely need to know to upgrade your apps.
First things first, you gotta check your environment. Spring Boot 4 now requires Java 17, so that is your new minimum. It also brings in Spring Framework 7 and Jakarta EE 11. And definitely pay close attention to the removals. For instance, if you're using the Undertow server, you'll need to plan a switch to Tomcat or Jetty because Undertow support is gone.
Now, beyond just specific features, one of the biggest philosophical shifts in Spring Boot 4 is how it thinks about dependencies. The whole goal is to create a more modular, more lightweight, and much more intentional design.
This new philosophy is all about being deliberate. The idea is that you should only pull in what you absolutely need for your app to run. So gone are the days of those big, chunky starters that pulled in tons of other dependencies you might not even be using. Now, almost everything has its own dedicated starter. And, this is really important, a separate test starter, so your test libraries don't bloat your final production app.
This table shows exactly how this new pattern works. You can see it, right? If you're building a web app, you grab Spring Boot Starter Web MVC. Then, for your tests, you add Spring Boot Starter Web MVC Test. It's the same simple pattern for everything, whether you're using Spring Data JPA or Spring Security.
And hey, quick heads up, while you're doing your migration, a lot of the really common starters have been renamed to be more specific. The one that's going to hit pretty much everybody is Spring Boot Starter-Web. That's now called Spring Boot-Starter-Web MVC. So you'll definitely want to update your build files, otherwise you'll be scratching your head trying to figure out what broke.
So, if you step back and look at the whole picture, a really clear theme pops out: precision and intent. Spring Boot 4 is giving us developers the tools to be really precise with our API contracts, really explicit about our code safety, and really intentional about every single dependency we bring into our projects.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to chew on. With all these powerful new tools for precision and safety at your fingertips, how is that going to change the way you design your next application? This is a really great chance to rethink some of those old habits and start building even better, safer, and more modern software with Spring.